The grand conference hall buzzed with anticipation as the professional event wound down for the day. Rows of chairs faced a sleek, modern stage adorned with the logo of the event, Global Industry Innovators. Experts, executives, and innovators from various fields had gathered for this annual conference to exchange ideas and strategies. Amid the sea of suits and name badges, two figures lingered near the side of the stage, taking a moment away from the crowd. Anna Matthews, a rising star in the tech industry, was in her early 30s. Her sharp focus and determined energy were apparent in everything she did. Standing beside her was Michael Donovan, a seasoned veteran of the finance world in his mid-40s, whose calm demeanor and thoughtful gaze spoke of years of navigating corporate storms. They had met earlier during a panel discussion, and now, as the evening wore on, they found themselves deep in conversation about the very reason they were here: conferences like this one.
You know, Michael, these conferences are such a whirlwind. Panels, keynotes, networking, it's a lot to take in all at once. I always wonder if there's a real impact from these events. I mean, sure, we hear some interesting talks, but does anything really stick once we're back in the office?
That's a good question. I've been to more conferences than I can count, and I've seen both sides of it. Sometimes, you walk away feeling like you've gained a fresh perspective, something that actually changes how you approach your work. Other times, it feels more like an obligation, like a checklist item for professional development. But I think it depends on how you approach it.
Question: do you think industry conferences are truly valuable, or are they just another formality? A. Conferences are essential for exchanging ideas and staying relevant. B. They can feel like a formality, but the value depends on the individual. C. Most conferences are overrated and don't lead to any real progress.
Answer: B. They can feel like a formality, but the value depends on the individual. The truth is, a conference is only as valuable as what you choose to take from it. Sure, you can sit in the back, nod along, and then forget everything the next day. But if you actively engage, ask questions, make connections, and think about how what you're hearing applies to your work, that's where the value is. It's not just about the information, it's about what you do with it.
That makes sense. I guess I'm still figuring out how to navigate these events. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by all the talks, and sometimes the content feels generic, like it's not specific enough to my field. But maybe I need to be more deliberate about which sessions I attend and how I approach them.
The low hum of conversations filled the room as attendees mingled nearby. A faint clink of glasses and laughter echoed from the conference's networking event. Anna glanced at the schedule in her hand, her eyes skimming over tomorrow's agenda. Michael took a sip of water, his gaze distant as he considered her words.
You know, Anna, another thing that can be overlooked is the value of networking here. People often see it as superficial, but the connections you make can have a long-term impact. I've met some of my most important collaborators at events like this, even when I didn't expect it.
I'm still getting used to that part of it, networking. It always feels a little forced to me, like you're trying too hard to make something happen in a short amount of time. How do you go beyond the surface level when you're meeting someone at a conference like this?
Question: do you think networking at industry events is effective, or is it just small talk that leads nowhere? A. Networking is crucial. It often leads to meaningful collaborations. B. It can feel forced, but with the right approach, it works. C. Most of the time, networking at these events doesn't lead to anything significant.
Answer B. It can feel forced, but with the right approach, it works. I think it's about finding common ground quickly. When you're in the same room with people who are interested in similar things, you have a chance to connect over real ideas, not just small talk. If you're genuine and actually interested in what the other person has to say, it can lead to something real. Maybe not immediately, but down the line.
You're right. The key is sincerity. People can tell when you're just going through the motions. The most valuable connections I've made weren't forced. They were organic, based on shared goals or experiences. And sometimes, the person you didn't expect to connect with ends up being the most important contact you make.
The crowd was thinning as the evening wore on, and the conversations around them became quieter. Anna glanced over at a small group of attendees engaged in animated discussion near the bar. She turned back to Michael, a thoughtful look in her eyes.
You know, I've been to a few conferences before this one, but I still struggle with figuring out what to focus on. There's always so much information, so many speakers. How do you decide what's worth your time and what's just noise?
That's the tricky part, isn't it? Not everything you hear at these events will be useful to you personally. But the goal is to find the pieces that resonate, the ideas that challenge you to think differently or that you can apply to your work. It's like finding gold in a river. You sift through a lot of sand, but the nuggets you find can be valuable. Question: how do you prioritize what's worth your time at a conference, especially with so many options? A. Focus on sessions directly related to your field. B. Explore diverse topics to broaden your perspective. C. It's better to follow up on recommendations from colleagues.
Answer A. Focus on sessions directly related to your field. For me, it makes sense to focus on sessions that speak to what I'm already working on. I think that's where the most immediate value comes from. But at the same time, I'm tempted to check out sessions that are a bit outside my comfort zone, just to see what's out there.
That's a solid approach. If you focus on what's directly relevant, you'll definitely come away with practical takeaways. But don't be afraid to explore something new. Some of the most interesting ideas come from unexpected places. Something that might not seem relevant now could spark a completely new direction for you later on.
The lights in the conference hall dimmed slightly as the staff began packing up for the evening. Attendees were slowly drifting out, heading for their hotels or late dinners. The energy of the room was quieter now, contemplative, as the day's events wound down.
I think this conversation has been more valuable than some of the sessions I attended today. It's given me a better idea of how to approach tomorrow and the next event I go to, for that matter. It's not just about passively absorbing information. It's about what I do with it afterward.
Exactly. These conferences are an opportunity. Whether you're here for the knowledge or the connections, you have to be active in how you engage. It's easy to sit back and let it wash over you, but the real impact comes from being deliberate.
I'm going to keep that in mind. From now on, I'll treat these events as more than just a formality. It's about finding value, whether that's in a new idea, a new connection, or even a challenge to the way I've been thinking.
That's the right mindset. You'll get far with that approach. And who knows? Maybe we'll be on the next conference panel together.
As the two colleagues stood and prepared to leave the emptying hall, the sense of purpose in their conversation lingered. The conference may have been coming to a close, but for Anna, it felt like the beginning of a new way to engage with her industry. She walked out into the night, ready to return tomorrow with a fresh perspective on how to harness the power of these events. 5 words related to the theme of industry conferences.
Networking. The process of building professional relationships that can lead to future opportunities. Engagement. Actively participating in discussions, sessions, and activities to gain the most value from an event.
Collaboration, the act of working with others, often from different fields, to achieve shared goals or generate new ideas. Insight, gaining a deeper understanding or perspective from expert talks or interactions.
Strategy. Planning how to approach a conference. Selecting key sessions and connections that align with career goals.